Okay, good evening, everybody. How is everyone doing? Don't worry, Tim, you are actually on time. We were just chatting because I was early. Hope everyone's well. Hope everyone is good. And for those that did come down to the cuddle over the weekend, it was great seeing you all. I did shoot off a little bit earlier, but I still enjoyed myself. Started a really good time. And as I mentioned in the chat, it is it's just always good sort of catching up with everyone. I kind of feel like a lot of the time I just regurgitate stuff and you either hear about what I'm doing or what I think. But actually the cuddles are just an ideal opportunity for me to just soak up some stuff people are sending my way. So yeah, always good to do those. The next one's in November. I think it's gonna be a big one there, a bit of a Christmas party. So looking forward to that one. Getting on to tonight though, obviously I only spoke a couple of days ago. So I say it every time, try and make this one a short one. We'll see where we go with that one. But are we being tricked? Are we being tricked into buying Bitcoin? Is it all a fad? And the reason I say that is we've had news that we'll go into a little bit later on, concerns about what Coinbase were doing. Were they paper trading BTC with the ETFs or not? We'll see if that's got a resolution a little bit later on. I've been talking about it. A lot of people have been talking about, sharp cuts in interest rates usually lead to downturns in the market. And yet anything but markets are rallying, altcoins are rallying, BitTensor's rallying. Bitcoin's, it moved last week, but it has probably been stagnant the last few days. And so, what's going on here? Are we just being led down the garden path? Or actually, the other thing we talked about an awful lot over the summer was October. And we're only a week away from October. So maybe we just moved that a little bit to the left-hand side. So we're going to try and just have a look, see whether or not we are being tricked, lured into a bullish sentiment before getting dropped upon. Or actually, if the macro picture is not quite as bad as that, we're just letting our fear of what's happened over the past 7 years of my journey in crypto, never mind what everyone else's is, sort of cloud our judgment here. And regardless of which way the market's going to turn, there's still opportunities in both directions until that decision, that reality hits. And I think that's what I want to try and explore today. So that's what we're going to look into. But let's just dive straight into some of the charts. I've left my drawings on this one, but this is the one you always see. So Bitcoin, Casper, I've actually put total market cap 3. So the altcoin market on here and BitTensor. And these lines don't really line up, but we can have a look. Bitcoin, just doing its thing, this sort of bullish rectangle. Someone pointed out to me today, and I can't dispute it no matter how long it has gone on for. But I mean, there is a bit of a cup and handle forming there. I completely get that. I think, when something smacks you in the face like that, you can't ignore it, regardless of the time frame that it's been going on. And they are bullish sentiments. So, as we start to see volume taper off here, hopefully we get a new injection of liquidity to then take that thing back up. So yeah, that's something to look out for. I think it's too grand a scale to really worry about, but as soon as it's smacking me in the face whilst I'm chatting to you, there we go. Right, these lines don't seem to line up, but that's because I've put this on the 3-day chart. I think this actually lines up a lot better on the 3-day chart. And you can really kind of see what Bitcoin's done since March, or this bull flag. I was going to say bullish rectangle. It isn't. Falling channel, whatever you want to call it, has played out quite nicely body to body on the 3-day time frame. Why do I bring it up now? Well, Bitcoin's about to have to make a decision. We are at the cusp of this here. I think it's almost a foregone conclusion. We probably do see 66,000, but it's what do we do there? Do we finally have the desire, the motivation, and more importantly, the liquidity to get through this level? Or are we just going to head back down, then have to start talking about this bull flag for another month or so as we see that correction? So still plenty of time till we could hit that. But the last 2 weeks, Bitcoin has had fairly decent turn. And it wasn't that long ago. We were at 52,000. We were at 25 on the Fear and Greed Index. That feels a long way away with where things are going. And I jokingly, potentially put into the poll that, are we checking our portfolios? Because I certainly know I wasn't checking my portfolio when the market's down. I haven't really checked it properly yet. I've been editing a little bit, and obviously I show where my portfolio is, so I had a look at the snapshot for the percentages, but arguably that's not a good place to be if everyone is looking at their portfolios every 5 seconds. Maybe there's a bit too much greed. But we're made of sterner stuff, aren't we? All right, we'll come and have a look at Bitcoin in more detail a little bit later on. Casper, I mean, you know, for one in the group that we love so much, oopsie daisy, it hasn't performed as well as our other beloved BitTensor, but I would argue that over the course of this 6-month correction, Casper has. So don't get short-sighted within that. You know, BitTensor's fallen from 780 down to 170, and now it's back up at 550, wherever it is. Whereas Casper over that same period has just continued to climb. And so, yeah, last couple of weeks maybe not being as good. However, it has still done remarkably well. And to the flip side of where Bitcoin is, we're just looking to, you know, likely retest the bottom part of this channel, which again is thrown on the 3-day. I don't know if that lines up any better. It's still actually pretty good on the 3-day. Tidy that up a bit. Yeah, so maybe we come down to, you know, sub 15 before we find that bounce on the way back up. But, you know, that's not a bad place to be. Find some support if the market does get that liquidity we're looking for, then it's in an ideal place for it to move up. And its strength throughout here, I think, is undeniable. So, yeah, you know my position with that. I'll come back onto Total 3 in a moment, but let's have a look at BitTensor. Now, I smile and I laugh because I think BitTensor kind of defies TA at the moment. Obviously, one we've been in the group for quite some time. And, yeah, we've I suppose, reaped the benefits. I think most people have dipped in and out of BitTensor over the last few months. But, you know, where do we see what has happened? Because actually, I want to try and put it on the daily just for a second. I mean, look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 green candles in a row. Absolute rippers as well. Matter of fact, the only day where we didn't see a double-digit increase was Sunday. So we really have seen this motor up. I mean, it wasn't this time last week, it was sub 300. We've almost 100%ed in the space of 7 days. And hey, that's great. And because it's a fan favorite of ourselves, that's why we're looking at our portfolios again. It's looking healthier. I sort of put in Discord and I mentioned I've kind of done the figures now. I think that last side step, I'm about 6% down, 5-6% down. So, you know, okay, but with the way the side steps have gone on the way down, I haven't obviously, but I have done well on the way down. So we win some, we lose some, and I know there are people that we're, you know, sort of chatting in the successes stream or in the trading side of things, and maybe you've been caught out. Look, I've been caught out as well on this final one. I got my last big purchase of BitTensor back in at 409. Bearing in mind, I was watching it at 170. You could feel that's a bit of a kick in the teeth, but you know, we played a little bit there, but I got that last chunk back. And then actually, as you'll see a little bit later on, I've been selling other assets that I'm not that interested in, and I'm buying BitTensor. Why? Yes, it's overextended. It's likely to pull back. But just because an asset is on a rip now and you've seen it at a lower price doesn't mean it can't do better later. I believe between now and, you know, the end of the bull run, whenever that's going to be, I will buy more BitTensor because I like the project, and I'll just dollar cost average in throughout the time. So I remember back in February thinking 500 was a good price. Here we are now, 500, still a decent price. So yeah, I bought some more last night at about 475. I bought some today at I think about 555, maybe 565. So that was just because I'm tidying up my portfolio. But anyway, we'll try and break down the TA for BitTensor. I'm not going to lie to you, and spoiler alert, because maybe half an hour's time, it feels overextended. But that has not stopped it now. So we'll enjoy it whilst we can. And I want to talk about Total 3, which we will go into a little bit later on. Why? I'm actually a little bit excited about Total 3 for once. And again, I want to throw it on the 3-day chart here because I still think the 3-day helps paint a pretty decent picture body to body. And you can kind of see, actually, oh, no, I messed that one up. Have we actually broken out the top of this channel? And it's not just one candle here. It's potentially already had that first candle and second to go. Now, fine, fair enough. You could also argue that there is a fairly decent triple bottom that has formed here. But now can we see some sort of movement up? And there's two ways that we can achieve that. We can either achieve that by Bitcoin dominance dropping, liquidity remaining in the market as a general, going into altcoins, or actually just liquidity has returned to the entire market. Let's ignore Bitcoin dominance. And this just brings this up, because remember, this is just total market cap of total fleet. But the fact that we have actually broken out of this level here, which we have been in that downtrend for, similar kind of time, halfway through March, end of March, all the way down. So we're kind of talking about 6 months just to sort of clear that through. What I would say, and I think it's only fair to mention it, the way it's not fib, it's this. I mean, there's a decent amount of candles in our way there. So you could argue we are at the waistline of a double bottom, which I completely get, but we also did have that channel, which I've gone and deleted. We'll have a look at Total 3 and other altcoins a little bit later on. But yeah, I think there's room to have a little bit of optimism, and we'll see how it goes. Right, let's just cover a few news articles. There's not too much to run through. You'll be happy to hear. I do want to talk about this one. So this is BlackRock and Coinbase. So why is this important? Why is this coming about? Well, there's been some rumors going around that the reason the price of Bitcoin has been suppressed for the last few months is because Coinbase actually haven't been trading genuine Bitcoin, real Bitcoin, whatever you want to call it. Rather, they've been paper trading those. And so that has been suppressing the price. That has kind of led for one of two things to happen, which is covered in this article. Firstly, BlackRock has submitted a revision to the ETF, which effectively requests a 12-hour window for Coinbase to honor, transact, complete, show on-chain activity, whatever term you want to use, of any withdrawal requests that are made by any of the ETF entities. And secondly, we've had actually the CEO of Coinbase, Brian Armstrong, Goldilocks as he calls himself, not me. I'll be joining him soon. And he's gone on to effectively just sort of try and debunk this as well. Now, this is 10 days ago. So this isn't relatively new news, but the fact that people are concerned about it is just, something worth to discuss. So he's gone on and sort of said, not sure what this is all about, to be honest. All ETF mints and burns we process are ultimately settled on-chain. Institutional clients have trade, financing, and OTC options before trades are settled on-chain. This is the norm for our institutional clients. All funds are settled in our prime vaults on-chain within about 1 business day. If you want audits, Deloitte's audit us annually. We're a public company. I doubt our institutional clients want people dusting all their addresses, and it's not our place to share them. This is what it looks like if you want a bunch of institutional money to flow into Bitcoin. I think there's a couple of things just to pick out from there. I actually agree. Institutional entities. Well, let's start with Coinbase, actually. They don't advertise. So when we look at ETF trackers, and we go on Arkham, Coinbase, Grayscale, BlackRock, Bitwise, everyone, they've not given the addresses. This is just what internet sleuths have found to seem to be the prime addresses. So it's not in their nature, it's not in their business model to actually come out and say which of their wallets. They don't really want people to know, but they understand that people find them. Secondly, they are public listed company. They are S&P, they must be. And so they are being audited. And, these audits are going to be very, quite thorough. At the end of the day, 10 out of the 11 ETFs use Coinbase as a custodian for their Bitcoin. So it's not like they can just pull the wool over their eyes, because there's a lot of eyes looking at them. And then finally, as old Brian Goldilocks says there, we think we wanted this. We think we wanted institutional money in there, but these are big boys. They're playing with biggest amounts of money. So yeah, okay, they might trade finance, they might do spot buys, or they might do OTC. Those avenues are available to all people who want to buy Bitcoin, but institutions obviously have greater ability to sort of like utilize them for their benefit. But what he's tried to come out and say is, look, everything is settled on chain. And then what you add on top of that with BlackRock's submission for the revision, asking for the 12 hours. I think that's going to have to settle the nerves there. People are going to be able to see that actually when ETFs start making withdrawals, and they do it all the time anyway, if it does get a 12-hour window, it's not like, if they were paper trading this, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin here, we'd find out very quickly whether or not that was the case. And obviously, if it is, that ain't a good thing. But I think that should hopefully alleviate any concerns to show that actually this is what they are doing. I don't think there's anything else we need to discuss on that one, but it has been talked about quite a bit. The other thing to talk about, let me have a drink of water, is some news that came out in the early hours of this morning with the People's Bank of China launching 2 stimulus packages, which got everybody excited. And I suppose rightly so. Ultimately, in the end of the day, Japan is looking to create additional liquidity. And what do the Japanese like to do? Well, 1, they like to put it in gold. Guess what? Gold got an all-time high today. 2, actually, they're still pretty big into crypto. And despite their ban on mining, I was going to cover this later, but China still controls 55% of Bitcoin hash rate. So we can see that China still like Bitcoin now and cryptocurrency. I think it comes in a little bit later on in this article. But there have been 2 other occasions in which China has done stim pumps because their economy isn't looking great. So they're trying to do something about it. And quantitative easing, as we know, is a good way to try and stimulate that. And, you know, the fact that there's going to be extra money floating around in China, the US economy is going to welcome that because they'll be looking for them to invest in their traditional finance vehicles. So generally, that is a good thing. And this news has been fairly well received. Although I would say the markets haven't massively reacted to it yet. Bitcoin's still stuck under 64,000. We'll have a look at why that's an important level later on. But we go through this article. So the People's Bank of China announced that it would inject around 140 billion of liquidity into the financial systems by cutting the reserve required ratio by 50 basis points. This is basically the amount of money that the banks have to keep on their books, I suppose. Lowering borrowing costs, ease property purchase rules to shore up its struggling real estate market and the wider economy. And let's face it, I don't think this is relatively groundbreaking news, but all they're doing is kicking the can down the road like every other government does. They don't want to admit their financial system's broken, so we'll just print more and worry about it a bit later on. But hey, for us in the here and now, that's a relatively positive thing. The bottom is in for global bank, central bank liquidities for this cycle. Sit back and watch other central banks fall in line. So China making the decision to turn the money printers on. The big question is, when are America going to turn their money printer on? Now, personally, I think it's a bit too early. We've only just seen the first interest rate cut. And again, I'll cover it now. I suppose we're kind of doing all of this. But there's not too many news events, but, for the next month or so. We've got some CPI data next month, some payroll and some unemployment stuff, but nothing huge that's really going to upset the apple cart until the election. So it kind of feels like the US, well, they won't make a decision on turning the money printer off until after the election. I can't understand how that would ever be a reality, prior to the 5th of November. Plus, we haven't got another FOMC meeting until the 7th of November. So, we've got a bit of time, and we know old Jerome, he likes to be led by the data. And so he's just going to wait to see how some of these news events transpire. And, ultimately, unemployment rate, and now, we want to see how interest rates actually manage it, especially with that first rate cut. So where do we see the CPI month on month and year on year? Is this thing coming down still? I would say that even staying stationary is fine. If it went up even slightly, that's not a problem. If we start to see some quite significant jumps, then maybe we got an issue to say, actually, we don't quite have inflation under control. But I would argue that at the moment, the data seems to be driving towards that is coming down. Artificial or not doesn't necessarily matter. And so, that sounds like all good news for the markets to be able to move across. We'll have a look at how that may affect the price of Bitcoin, etc. in a moment. But this was the thing that I spoke about. So the People's Bank of China's recent stimulus package announcements have preceded huge rallies in the risk assets like Bitcoin. So, for instance, the People's Bank of China ejected 367 billion in October of 2023. Wow, when we massively surged up in October last year, and 140 billion in January 2020. Well, wait a second, when you look at both of those, these stim pumps reacted very nicely with large moves up there. Now, okay, You could argue that the one in January 2020 was right at the beginning of the ETF launch, but actually the ETFs dipped down, then this launched. And, I'm not saying that they're completely tied to each other, but the timing of both of those, it just goes to show that actually injection of cash within Chinese economy is generally good for the world economics, and Bitcoin's part of that. So we will hopefully see that move up. And the argument that this article makes is that the bull flag breakout would eye us up to around about 80k, which we'll have a look at the TA of that a little bit later on. But yeah, a relatively good piece of news. Another piece of news that came out yesterday, which I didn't actually, or the early hours this morning, I didn't actually have an article for, but last week, last time we met was actually pre-FOMC. So this is the first time we met since then. And there was an article that came out to suggest that, as good as that's going to be, Bank of Japan, they were looking at increasing their interest rates. Well, since then, we've actually had two events from the Bank of Japan. They didn't increase their interest rates on Friday, which I don't think anyone expected them to. But what was more important was the feedback, the comments that were made, and I don't know the gentleman's name, which effectively the chairman of the Bank of Japan central bank, which effectively just said, look, we're kind of happy with the position where our economy is at the moment. So right now, we don't feel like we really need to raise interest rates further. Obviously, we've got that in our back pocket, should we? But we too, he must have had a phone call with Jerome, going to be governed by the data. He's not really talking about his data. He's going to be talking about the US's data and what they're doing. But the point of the matter is okay, if US interest rates are dropping and Japan's are staying at 0.25, then that carry trade's kind of on, so people can, borrow yen, turn it into US dollars, put that into the US economy, which again, just helping keeping that injection of liquidity in the market. So a couple of decent news articles, which are just going to, help the markets in at least the short term. And so, that kind of goes with the narrative we talked about last week with, cuts in rates usually mean that we actually start to see increases in the markets, all-time high. We've already achieved the all-time high on the S&P. We haven't actually re-triggered the all-time high on the NASDAQ. Let's have a look where we are in the NASDAQ. So actually the NASDAQ previous all-time high, if I can find a little array, it's down here, 20,800 for want of a better term. But actually that was done sort of July. Since then, we've not actually had that move up like we did with the S&P, similar picture, but with announcement of the rates, and up we went to all-time highs. I do expect that the all-time high for the NAS will be taken out, but maybe we've got that to go before we see a bit of a correction within the market. And for those of you that were around on Saturday, there's a lot of stuff that was talked about. Global macroeconomics, potential of the crash, and the implications that could have, not just on cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, but the wider economy. And I don't really want to rehash that today, but to say effectively a crash of some sort is probably going to be likely. Whether or not the US can stick the landing with a soft landing, or if it is a hard crash straight into a recession, I think is ultimately what's going to have the impact. And it's not necessarily because of the drop within the markets. It's just going to be the time period it takes to get out of either the crash, which hopefully could be like 2020, V-shaped reversal and off we go, or if it's going to be a recession a bit more in line to 2007 and 8 and 2001, we could be talking 6 to 9 months before we find the bottom of that. That has an impact on where we can go with the market. Doesn't necessarily mean that I'm less bullish on cryptocurrencies, on Bitcoin. It's just a time game there. So that's the 30-second summary of what it took me an hour to say last time round. I think this is just the same article, but there's a lot of articles that seem to have come out today that basically are quite happy with where Bitcoin is going. But speaking of Bitcoin's price, so it's kind of where we are. For those of you that I explain this chart every week, but I think most of you already know it. So 12-hour chart at the moment, that big white line's a trend line all the way back to January 2023, and then we've just seen touch points and breaks through it. The yellow boxes are the liquidity level that's taken off high black. They've been relatively updated. The smaller boxes are ones that have just formed, and then we've got a Fibonacci thrown on there. Now, going into the price itself, Bitcoin currently just underneath 64,000, and what's interesting is, this is what 4 or 5 days work is about 8 candles there of us actually building some sort of support on the 618, just above 63,000. There's not many candle closes below that. Yes, it spikes below. However, most of the time it regains that. So for now, it's a relatively stable place to be in. You add on to that the positive news with, the rate drop, and let's not kid ourselves, the rate drop happened here when we were at 58. So we did see that move up, but we've started to see it. I don't want to say it's stagnating, it's going to fall. It's just stalled over the weekend as we tried to see where we're going. But with where that news is right now, okay, may not have reacted like some of the other markets have, but I feel that we are due and highly likely to probably see that move up, maybe even a retest, taking out this liquidity area around about 67,000. That 66,000 level we talked about on the other chart, just from the downward sloping pattern. But just pretend how long it takes to get there. But generally, it's a relatively positive side of things on the higher time frame. My only concern would be at the moment is the longer this just drags out to the right. I don't have volume on here, but we just want to make sure, that we're not just sort of like petering off, volume dying down. Obviously, an injection could take it either way, but the worst thing that we could see is it fall back down. That being said, even a fall down wouldn't necessarily surprise me, because that 60,000 level, the 0.5, plenty of support on there to catch it. And unfortunately, although I don't really want it to get back down there, 57,000 again, a pretty good level at the 382. So big picture stuff, I don't think that's necessarily too bad. Let's just find a clean chart. And now we'll just, work our way back down from the things. Let's just move it on to, why has it not got my indicators on? Let's just do this one. Okay. Don't know why we need that. Sorry. So let's just break it down onto sort of the 4 hour here. And we've obviously had this move back down. And I know, again, there's quite a lot on here. Just have a look at the candles rather than the EMAs at the moment. So we've had this sort of almost slight double top on the 4, that move back down, double bottom down here, and this move back up. I imagine, let me have a look. This just looks like a mirror of it. I'm just wondering what the time frame is on both of those. 89 bars to the center. I mean, it doesn't make any difference if it isn't or if it is. 89 bars to the center. It's almost a mirror of that move up, sort of like that sell pressure causing the anxiety through the beginning of September. And then we've just built it up. And you can kind of see now, looking at these, all of these red candles that formed on the way back down, what's happened? They've been recovered. Then a bit of stationary sideways action, recovered stationary sideways. And what we've got at the moment is we've actually just recovered the last of the vector candles associated with the top of this. And what we're doing, we're just moving sideways. But even again, just looking on the 4 hours, we're climbing through these consolidation periods, consolidating on the 50, consolidating on the 20 and the 10, come back up, again, consolidating down here and a move back up. So I'd really be looking at 62,000 at the moment, and a break of that, maybe we need to reevaluate. But even a slight breakdown to 61.5 to take out this last little bit of liquidity there, or vector candle recovery there, potentially. But it's nothing we haven't really seen. And I know it's only the 4 hour candle, but we've got sort of 2-3 weeks worth of data here. And this is kind of nice, slow and steady, sort of, I was going to say natural, but some people are thinking the Bitcoin price is being manipulated. But, that move up, nice recovery back down, move back up again, a little bit of a consolidation period here before hopefully that next move back up. I don't think the hourly is really telling us anything, but you can really see on the hourly that it just hasn't done much. It really hasn't. This period here, and we look at some of the altcoins later on, they've really moved. While Bitcoin itself just hasn't done anything. And if we do just throw on gold at the same time, on the hourly, this is, you know what, let's go on a clean chart because that's quite messy. Let's just throw this on the hourly. Let's just throw on gold. Obviously, gold was stagnant there because of the weekend. Obviously, Bitcoin was, but that sharp move hasn't been replicated. However, it has been moving generally with it. So maybe we're just a bit of a delayed reaction. Maybe we see Bitcoin make that move, I don't know, in the early hours of Asia or what have you. And it is just a bit of a delayed reaction, but it's not often we see Bitcoin in a, I mean, this is a tight range, 64 to 62 and a half. We're talking like $2,000, for the last week or so. It just hasn't really moved beyond that one. Let me just rehide that. I don't know why I got the S&P on here. What's that really showing? Nothing really. Okay, well, we'll leave that. I mean, the S&P since opening today has not really done much either, I will say. It's hard to show, but let's get rid of that. Don't need it. So yeah, not too much on the hourly side of things. Now going back to that, that concern with are we being tricked? What's the thought process here, Harry, in terms of what am I doing and where do I see things? So I talked at length last week about rate cuts and what that's done historically. And I think you are a fool to just ignore history when it's so compelling. 14 of the last 15, sharp drops in interest rates have led to a crash/recession at some stage. So it's naive to think that this time is going to be any different. But I also add on to that the vast majority of those have seen climb outs before we see a fall. And we are still in, we're only 6 days since that rate cut. That sort of euphoric period, and the last 2 rate cuts, big rate cuts, 2007, 2001, saw an average of about 20 to 21 days, so 3 weeks. So we may still have that opportunity for that climb out. And I dare say, actually, maybe we have a little bit more. Going back to that news events or the lack of major news that we're going to have next month, there's really nothing there, I think, that is going to sort of potentially be a spanner in the works. Because even if, unless inflation massively spikes up. But as I mentioned earlier on, if this kind of stays in the sort of the ballpark of where we currently are, or let's face it, we're only a few weeks out from an election and we get a magic sort of figure that still shows it's under, or we hit 2% or what have you, the market's going to react very well to that. And I don't think we're really going to see anything if we move into November. This is interesting. 5th of November, presidential elections. 1, it's an Avengers Call. That should be interesting. 2, the very next day is FOMC. And then the rates get announced on the Thursday. So, what a perfect excuse we have there. We have finally, well, hopefully, it's a clear win in the election. Not quite like last time or any contesting or anything like that. So we'll have a direction. The markets will feel some sort of certainty there. And then come November, some of these people might be worried for their jobs, depending on the outcome of it. We're going to get unemployment claims and the FOMC federal fund rate on the same day. It almost feels like it's the perfect opportunity for a pivot, if that's going to be. But that is 6-7 weeks away. That is October away. And so actually, we might be being tricked into buying Bitcoin and altcoins and taking for a ride as the markets go up. But that's fine. That's fine. I am short-term bullish at the moment. The market's going to crash now because I've put hammered my flag to the mast, or whatever the saying is. But there doesn't seem to be anything that's going to necessarily rock the boat. There's, the China news, there's the Japan news. I understand, Israel and Lebanon and all of that kind of stuff may unsettle some things, of course. And we'll have to just play that by the ear. But ultimately, outside of that, from an economic picture, it feels like the ducks are kind of in a row for a positive move over the next month or so, as there isn't anything that's really going to upset the apple cart. So I'm not too worried that if we are getting tricked. In my mind, I am back in the markets now completely. I've got a little bit on the side just to do some actual trading. And that's fine. And we'll just see how Bitcoin moves and how the rest of the crypto markets move. And then if we start to see the signs for the crash, well, at least we'll have moved up from where we are now, hopefully, to be able to try and take advantage of that. And as I said on Saturday, I'm not adverse, if we need to take a sidestep. It doesn't mean that I'm no less bullish, but if it is going to be a crash/recession, might as well try and protect what I've got, which is why I have gone through the unstaking process. And I cannot believe it. I was just bragging about the fact that I unstaked Polkadot at the end of September because it's a 28-day unstake. Went to have a look at it today, and it didn't go through because I didn't leave enough in my balance. And so I actually haven't started it till today, which means it's 28 days from today, 4 weeks time. What's that going to be? 22nd of October. I mean, hopefully we are in October by then, but I'm not necessarily selling any of that. I just want to be in a position to get out if I need to. The risk to reward of the little bit of staking rewards we get, not necessarily worth it for me. Let's have a look at some other tokens. Let's get, what on earth is, why is that on all of them? Oh yeah, anyway, let's get rid of that. Should have a look at the rest of the market. Should have a look at altcoins. Sorry, I've not really been looking in chat. I don't think anyone's asked any questions. Chris has put, Kaz is a rising channel though. May not be significant, but it's there. I mean, Kaz has just had a little tumble whilst we've been talking, actually. Not a huge one. We are on the hourly on this chart. Rising channel, you say? Oh, yeah, sorry, for Bitcoin. Sorry, not for Bitcoin, on the big. Yeah, it is. And look, I can't sit here and go, oh, well, the Bitcoin one is a descending channel, so that's all I want because I only want to look at positive things. But I sounds like I'm going to try and scapegoat this. That is a rising channel, which, of course, could turn into a Bart Simpson. We see that fall back down to 5 cents. I accept that. That will only happen if the rest of the market does it. I can't see Casper specifically decoupling from the rest. You know, it's got too many moon boys behind it. It's too memeable, and it's shown too much strength. Now, Bitcoin falls down to 40,000. Maybe this thing does. Maybe this thing goes down to 10. Again, I accept that completely. But I think we need the rest of the market to really see this one play out. So I respect the TA, but sometimes you just got to use that, you know, experience. And I loathe to use that word with myself because trust me, I make more mistakes than a beginner sometimes. But just to say that some things just don't feel right, and like I said, that falling without everything else falling just wouldn't seem right for me. It's too well established a project, regardless of what I think of it fundamentally. Let's go. What do? Let's do Tau first. Let's do Tau. I mean, it's what everyone's here for, isn't it? It's been a hell of a ride. So we're on the daily. We've seen this, as we said, and there was something I wanted to talk about on the daily. I can't necessarily remember what it was, but look, you know, this is the chart that I use to show vectors and have a look at market maker theory and all of that kind of stuff. And a lot of that's kind of, you know, it's hard to find a pattern in this. Obviously, there's some sort of topping pattern here. Maybe drop 1, drop 2 into some, not a weird kind of W, maybe, and off it goes. Fine. Let's not focus on that. What I want to talk about is this. All those green boxes there worry me because this has been such a steep climb up. And I think sometimes we get caught up on ourselves because it's such a positive climb up. I wasn't expecting this positive climb up. I wasn't expecting the rate and the steepness that it happened. And it's happened. And yes, it benefits from me. But we can't say that that couldn't happen to the downside because we've just seen it's happened to the upside. So I just want to get that out there. These are targets. Whatever has caused this move to happen, I don't know what it is. But if this was market maker theory, this is the market maker marking up the price before he starts to sell. Now, some people would argue that Tau's too new and it doesn't have that level of sophistication in terms of those that are buying it. But I would say no. We know that the likes of, not DCG, God, who is it? Why has the name escaped me? The people that have set up the fund for BitTensor. Can't remember. But we know there's funds that are there. Okay, we know Foundry are involved in this. We know they're validators, etc. Trust me, there's institutional money behind it. If there's institutional money in here, there's going to be market makers, okay? At the end of the day, market makers just provide liquidity to the market, okay? So if you can leverage trade this on Binance or wherever, someone's going to be taking up that. So for me, it is a worry that they're there. Now, it's been a worry for me for every day, and it still continues to climb. And so I've got to this kind of stage at the moment where I'm just going to roll with it and be able to react quickly. Thankfully, BitTensor is something that you can unstake in 10 minutes and move. But just look, you know, we've got how steep this is. Just look, even the 10 grayscale. Thank you, Brian. Even the 10 EMA on the daily is at 440. That's how far away we've moved from it. Okay, you look at the 50, that's at 330. Now we are about to have a golden cross. 200 and the 50 about to recross each other, which is great, you know, fine. Nice little move there. But the fact we're so far away from the EMAs, I just think don't be shocked if we get a pullback, and that pullback is relatively severe. I mean, let's just do I'm drawing a fib. I don't care about the fib. I'm just looking for where the 50 ends up. But even if we did body to body now, the 50's at 360. That move up, 360, we could lose another 200. Just for it to get back and pull back 50%. And we know moves like this generally have a 50% pullback. That being said, great move up there. Caught everybody by surprise. Really when it broke that 360 level. So it breaks 360. And I'm like, right, I want to get back in. But I like to wait. It broke this 200 EMA level. And I like to wait for the daily close. So this is where it broke. I wanted to wait for this daily candle. Bang, it's up there. I'm having to buy it like, 375. I think I got something like 369 or something like that. But that because I wasn't buying until here really, and then I had to get in, and then the weekend happened and we still climb up, and it felt bad buying at 360, but it feels pretty darn good now that it's at 560, and to buy back there. So it's all just about just going through that. Let's drop it down some lower time frames though. 4 hour. Now the 4 hour again. This is a little bit like BTC because I'm quite impressed with this 4 hour, despite it all. We've got some bottoming pattern down here. Okay, we've had the move up, retracement back down. Now this one's been a big move up on the 4 hour, but actually when we go into lower time frames, you can actually see, we've had these moves, vector candles, recovery, big move, vector candles, recovery, big move, vector candles, recovery, and it has just hugged this 10 EMA, and that's what it's been battling for the last few 4 hours. Hugging this 10 EMA. So I drew this little white line on here, which we'll show on the 1 hour later on, because break of that, then maybe there's an opportunity for a further drop. We might see it drop below 500. Maybe I can try and take advantage of that, try and recover some of that lost 6%. But until it does, nothing's really changed. The colors are slightly different, I accept, but that move, that's sort of staggered move up, it's done it. And the cooling off periods may not be as long as we like. And I still don't know what the reason is behind this. Part of me was thinking, are Coinbase getting a listing? Is that what it is? And people just know, and so they're buying that up. Similar to what we saw with Binance. Not the best thing if that is the case, but maybe that is what it is. But still, very positive to continue to see that up. We drop it down onto the 1 hour now. Let's get rid of this. I'll zoom in a bit because I think it was Darren that posted this in Discord. I think he kind of had a valid point. He might have put it on the 4 hour. So I'm just trying to draw it up as best as I can. But he was worried about some sort of M formation. I'm sure it was on the 1 hour. Some M formation. Okay. I mean, he'd even marked out like a W here. I think it went up to here, 1, 2, and then into the 3. But let's just get rid of that. Zoom in here. And the worry is that this was an M formation. Now, the fact that this has started to bounce back up, I accept. But what I'd looked at myself when he mentioned that was this trend line here. And at the time, 50 EMA was down. These were coming down. And I was looking to see whether or not it was going to come down here with the 50 EMA and also this bottom. And it hit this bottom and rebounds, but it's actually caught the tip of the cloud and it started to make that move up. So I'm not ruling it out yet because, quite often when we're on the hourly, the M's, the tops, they're not as perfect as you might think. But, sort of volume slowing down and then a big drop there. Sort of down. But look, the very next candle, swept back up and taking it. And then we're just slowly moving back up here. So this even here kind of looks a bit like market makers, moving that price back down and then just recovering it on the way back up. Brian's put, does look like Tau is stalling a little bit. 600 is an important level. I'll zoom out in a second and I'll have a look at that. I don't dislike this stalling in inverted commas. I mean, the stalling we had here was 33 candles. That's a day and a half of stalling. So this one, get to there. I mean, it's only 38 candles, only 5 hours more, and we still had that move up from 450 to 570. So this stalling doesn't necessarily worry me too much. You may well be right on that 600 level. So I'll have a look at it in a second, see whether it's important. Adam's put, what EMA was Tau hugging on the 4 hour? Likely the 10. Let's have a look. So my EMAs, so this light blue is 10. This red one is 20. This is 50. Yellow is 200. And then the purple is 800. So it's, I mean, it has, for me up here, it's done quite well. What I do want to come back to, so let's have a look at the 600 level first and foremost, and then we'll have a look at something else. So 600, yeah, I can see there's a lot of noise in and around here. Oh, it's actually 600 is far higher than that. That's 600 there. I can see it, but I don't know. How I look at things, I don't think there's much clear, there's much really in its way. I'll take the 600 from a psychological level, the hump here, but the strength of it's shown there, I don't think that's that be any problem. So actually, you can only just see it. It's been so far away, but there is a vector candle to be recovered at 620. So I'd be surprised if that's not gone for. But what I wanted to have a look at now, let's just take it onto a clean chart, just because it's easy to look at. Throw it on the daily, maybe even the 3 day. Let's get rid of that. Okay. Hopefully you can kind of see what I'm going to talk about here. So when BitTensor left 50 or 40 and it moved up to 400, I mean, it's pretty similar. That is a strong move. 8 strong green candles in a row, 9 even. I'll say it's more because this is on the 3 day. But a strong move up there with very little repercussion. And then we had a pullback. And let me take it off the log chart as well, so we can really see it. And then we had an even stronger move. Oops. From down here up to the top. So this isn't the first time BitTensor's done moves like this and defied that requirement for a pullback. But when the pullback came, it was pretty aggressive there, and then this one. So I don't know where the top's going to be, and history has said that it does have enough strength to keep on going. But at some stage, I would think we'll find some sort of pullback, 50% pullback, maybe more. And we just got to be ready for that. So is there an opportunity for a take profit level? Is there an opportunity a little bit later on to try and do some more side steps? Yes, of course there is. So I'm going to keep it on the high time frame. And by that time, we'll have other things. Yes, right now, I can, oops, no, I can't do anything. I can use things that I like fibs and that, try and get us something to have a look at. But I mean, this is kind of running into the 7/8 too, from there down to there. But it really didn't show much respect, Bust through this one. Okay, this is a 3 day. Maybe it did. Maybe I'm kidding myself. 382, 5. It didn't show any respect, but it pulled back and then kissed off it beautifully. But the 618, the golden, it just totally did the dirty on it and just flew straight past it. 782 is kind of running into in the moment. It's not one that I would usually said shows a lot of strength. 550. Matter of fact, going back to Brian's comment there, its current level we're at the moment, I feel that's where the previous strength is, certainly on the 3 day. You look at all that price history back there, it's pretty faint. That, let me try and a little bit darker. But I think you can get where I'm looking at. But there's definitely some interactions in and around there. So maybe this is the level in which we find it. I don't know. Well, we will see. But this went from this pullback was 400 down to 200, so 50% pullback. This was effectively 750. I mean, it dropped all the way to 160. So that's like a 60-odd% pullback. So yeah, there's some potential for some big pullbacks there. The key is just not trying to second guess. Just let it play out. Let it do a definitive turn and then see whether there's an opportunity. Because I know a few people have tried to find times to sidestep. Some of them have been good enough to be able to just sort of launch back in when they've not gone their way. But the rate this thing has moved, it can leave you high and dry pretty quickly. Right, let's have a look at some others. Near and Render. So Near and Render both had really nice moves, and Near at the moment, again, nice little double bottom there. Just broken through this neckline. It's a 3-day chart again. So maybe we see a move. Maybe we see 650 as a potential move up. And then, you know, if we can get there, we're challenging that. It must be an all-time high. I don't know how, no, local high that we had back in the early part of the year. But still, some positive signs for Near there. Let's get back onto this. We're doing it on this chart, to be honest. But you can kind of see, again, now they've got the EMAs, you know, yet we were hugging down below the 10. We bust through the 10, the 20, and the 50 without really much of a second hesitation. We've flown back through the 200 now. Vector candle has formed, and 50% is right on the 200 EMA. An ideal opportunity for that to pull back, maybe find some support from it, and then take that attack up to that 650 level. And then, yeah, we'll see where that takes us from there. But that's positive to see. Render, similar looking picture at the moment. Not broken through the EMA, not broken through the bum line. So a little bit to do, but again, some positive movement out there. And I think, there's a conference on at the moment in there in Singapore. I can't remember what it's called now, Bitcoin 2048 or 20. I can't remember what it is. So, you know, I don't know. Maybe there's some news that's going on there that's driving that one. I've not really been following it as such. But, you know, 2 AI tokens are similar with Tau making that move. Interestingly, though, it appears that, you know, I mean, we've seen NVIDIA, you know, the king of the NASDAQ, holding the US economy on its shoulders. But allegedly, you know, big billionaires and fund managers are getting rid of the NVIDIA. They've seen what they need to see from it, and they're looking to move into the ETFs. And so we've seen the price fall. I mean, it's about, I don't know where it is at the moment. That was yesterday, 116. But we've got the likes of, you know, Steve Cohen, Israel Englander, Ken Griffin, David Shaw. You know, they are all selling their part of their NVIDIA portfolio and moving that into iShares, BlackRock's Bitcoin Trust. So what figures are we looking at here? It comes and says it. So Steve Cohen, he's sold 63% of his NVIDIA holdings, and he's bought 1.6 million shares of BlackRock, IBIT. Israel Englander, 38%. That's 10.8 million shares of the BlackRock ETF. Griffin has cut his by 93%. He's almost got out of NVIDIA. And Shaw sold 70%. So whilst AI seems to be doing quite well in the crypto world, you know, people are, I don't know if they've had enough from NVIDIA and they're just trying to, you know, tempt something else, whether they're taking profits and moving into it, because NVIDIA's rise has been, you know, nothing short of miraculous. Let's not kid ourselves. We put this bad boy on the weekly, you know. October 22 is $11. All right. So we've 12x, we've 1,200%ed. It's not what you normally see. That's a crypto, that. So yeah, maybe there's sort of that move there, and we take it back even further to sort of like, you know, May 19, $3 a share. So yeah, an incredible move. So maybe it is just taking profit. But either way, crypto AI is certainly benefiting from it. ETH still not looking good to me. It really isn't. Yes, we have broken the 50 EMA, so okay, some sort of positive there. But you know, the others that I showed you had nice, clean double bottom patterns moving up through this. This one's a bit of a wonky one, and it is. I mean, we've got room to go, but it's still technically a lower high on the daily. We haven't quite breached that yet. Yes, we have beaten the 50 EMA, bounced off it, but we've got this bad boy that can potentially stop us. So we need to break 290. You know, we've got all of this where the 200 EMA is at the moment. We've got all of that in the way. So it's got to make some move to get through that. I just don't think it's been that good a performer, if I'm perfectly honest. I think Sol is doing better, but again, lower high. I mean, actually, let's just go through. Dot, lower highs at the moment. So, still lower highs in the altcoin market. Tau obviously isn't. Kaz, no, I mean, that's still higher than this high. I mean, obviously it's down there, but fine. Near has broken that high. Render has not yet. It's right on the cusp, but hasn't. We know ETH hasn't. Fetch has. It's okay, good. Another AI token, done well. Glimmer, just about. They're on par. Ondo, no, not yet. Piff, yeah, Piff has, okay. Soul, not yet. So you can get the point that as positive as it has been actually the last few days, I always, Soul looks like it's just trending sideways, but that whole altcoin market, we'll have a look at total 3 in a minute. Are we just getting a bit caught up in the hype? Actually, we've had a few good days, but on the macro picture zooming out, we haven't really done much. We need, for the example of Soul, 180, get excited above 180. Until then, we might just be false hope and back down. Excuse me. Be remiss of me not to talk about Taonu and Zappy. Taonu done very well. I know I was gonna give it a hard time, but I won't. We're at ascent now, and to be fair to it, it's almost 3x'd since the beginning of the weekend. So a very strong move up there. I'm not going on deck screening to have a look at what volume and liquidity is like. People are buying it. That's moving the price up. So for those that have held it, good, I suppose. I mean, this was at 4 cents not so long ago. So I don't know when people are buying it. You might still be slightly underwater, but we're getting in a better position. But really, nothing's changed in terms of you need liquidity to sell it if you've got a big bag. And Zappy, so Zappy, you can tell there isn't much liquidity because these days don't make sense. We go from the 2nd of July to the 16th in only like 4 candles, and so there's big gaps within it. But that being said, much like Taonu, a nice move up here. No break whatsoever. So it's pretty much 2.5x. I mean, at one stage, it had kind of 3x all the way up there. So good. And yeah, I'll give it its credit. It's clearing above some of these EMAs. So well played there. Right, let's have a look at total 3 Bitcoin dominance, and then I think we'll knock it on the head. So Bitcoin dominance, I mean, we made a local high at 58.5. We've started to see that come back down. Now, interestingly, what have we seen for the past year? Just comes back down, attacks the 50 EMA. We're about hitting that 50 EMA. Maybe we lose a little bit. We take down to 57 dead. But I wouldn't rule out Bitcoin yet. For me, this move down, fine, but likely we might see that. Now, that doesn't mean that altcoins are going to suffer as long as we've got the liquidity to take everything up with it. But I think this is almost signposting where it is that we're going. I just want to put it on the weekly. Let's get rid of that. Because I was hoping to draw some sort of trend line that we can use. No, that's not going to work. Maybe this side. It's probably a little bit better. Give me a little bit of rope, perhaps, because, Bitcoin dominance after all. But it's kind of maybe the line we want to look at. We drop that back down onto the daily. Gives it a little bit more room to fall, I suppose, before we bounce it back up. But, maybe we get down to 56.5 before we see some sort of turnaround there. But yeah, that usually means, are we in alt season index? So we're still in Bitcoin season, but it is moving up. Matter of fact, a few days ago, this was far better. 21st of September, we were at 46. So we have altcoins are taking a little bit more of a shoe bag in. And I see Tau. I mean, I'm not surprised to see Tau 98% up over the last 90 days. And it is the top performer in the top 50. And then Sue, which again has been ripping as well. But yeah, we're starting to see a few more sort of like overtake Bitcoin there. Right, let's have a look at total 3. I think then we'll be about done. So total 3, this is what we were looking at before. So this is now on the daily. So that's kind of where we were looking at, and we were kind of saying, you know what, we have broken through, and we are just about. We need another 5 billion, 5 more billion, only 5 more billion. I'll check my sofa shortly. Close above that. Yeah. We'll have broken through that neckline. We'll have cleared that high. It's not a trend reversal, remember, because although we've had higher low and we potentially might have a higher high, we need to then get this other low and then go. Then we know we've got that trend reversal. So, but we're close. We're very close. I'm liking that we've broken through that major resistance. I'm not going to jump on Bijan's thunder because he talks quite a lot about the Russell, and that's all in Discord. And what we're seeing there, we are seeing some movements on the Russell as well. So Russell 2K. So, you know, if that is something that you believe in, that sort of like in step that those two have, maybe we can see that there. But ultimately, for me, you know, this move up here is just showing that we've had, you know, Bitcoin dominance is dropping. People are moving into AI tokens. And let's face it, you know, the likes of AI related ones, you know, they're moving up. I mean, let's have a look. BitTensor. Come on, where are you? BitTensor 25 now. I mean, it was 44 last week. Last week it was 2 billion. It's now 4.1 billion. So, you know, that's just helping to sort of build up. So ones that are really doing well, and while Bitcoin's been stagnating for the last week or last 4 or 5 days, just helping sort of move that total 3 up, take a little chunk out of Bitcoin dominance. But for me, I don't want to get too excited just yet. But that does feel like, you know, for those of you that haven't, and thank you for doing the poll, but for those of you that haven't looked at your portfolio, you know, maybe just sort of, you know, quickly open the app, shut it down immediately, quickly open up, see what your subconscious retains. Maybe it won't be as scary as what it was. And, you know, and you can kind of get some feeling from it. Bitcoin, just while we've been chatting, I mean, it's above 64,000 at the moment. So we are talking about one of the levels that we were wanting it to break again, you know, taking out this high. Here's what we're looking at. Still got a bit of work to do, but good to see that move is starting to pay off. Just my portfolio, just because I know people are generally interested where it sits. No surprise, but BitTensor is about 40% of the portfolio at the moment. NEAR is about 25%, 27%. DOT's down at 10. CAS climbing up 9.2. Bitcoin 6.3. Render, Link, and a little bit of USDT. As I said, I am going to start doing some trades. I actually tried to put in a Bitcoin trade today. It was a long at 62,900. It was currently at 63,300. Never pulled back, and obviously it's gone up. We win some, we lose some. We'll try that one again, but I'm just trying to dip my toe in. It's more fake money than really trying to get into it. And that's why I asked in the chat if anyone had a good exchange we can use in the UK. I don't like KuCoin. It's a bit weird. I don't like using Mexi because the taxing API is quite difficult. Someone said BitGet and someone said BTCC. I've opened up both. We'll see where it goes. But anyway, that's where the personal side of it, the business, still 100% BTC. Still buying. Bought twice this month. It's almost the end of the month. I'll be buying again. At some stage, I need to come up with a figure for me to stop buying that. Bitcoin's too expensive. I'm not sure where that is, but the business side of it, it just keeps on accumulating that. I think that's kind of it. I think we've kind of talked enough, especially for those of you that had to listen to me rattle on over the weekend. But if anyone does have any comments or questions they want to add, let's just have a look at where the poll sat whilst people are coming through. So 30% of you have not checked your portfolio yet. Add me to that number. I mean, I'd say I've updated it, but I didn't actually dare to look in and take it all in. 25% of you have plucked up the courage. 25 smiling happily, and 20% every 5 minutes. I bet you're the sick guys though, or girls, that even when it's red, you look at it every 5 minutes. And I don't blame you. I used to torture myself because when it was green, I'm pointing at the screen, you can't see it. I used to have my Delta app would auto start on my computer, PC starting up, which, you know, October last year through to March was absolutely amazing feeling. And then for about 4 months, I just kept on having it up and just minimizing it immediately. I finally told my computer to stop doing that because it was a bit too brutal. Right, that's it. I just want to say thank you very much. Cheers, Tim Bitunex. I'll have a look at that one. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We've got a trading pub Thursday afternoon, so I will see you all there. Failing that, I shall see you next Tuesday. Is next Tuesday? Yeah, next Tuesday will be the 1st of October. Am I right? Oh, it will be officially in October. We'll have something new to talk about. Look forward to that one. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Any questions, hit me up in Discord. Other than that, I'll speak to you all soon. Cheers now.